Ah, the 1960s, a decade that danced between innocence and revolution, where the hum of everyday life carried the whispers of change. Picture this: suburban streets alive with the laughter of children, the scent of fresh baked pies wafting from open windows, and families gathering around flickering screens for a shared slice of wonder. As a historian with a heart full of stories, I've delved into the quiet corners of that era, unearthing 50 tender memories that time has gently tucked away. These aren't just facts, they're the soft glow of nostalgia, the kind that tugs at your soul and reminds you of simpler joys. Let's stroll down memory lane together, shall we? Each one evokes the warmth of those days, when life moved to the rhythm of vinyl records and transistor radios, echoes of the blue moon, a lost slice of Jersey, nostalgia under the vast New Jersey sky, where the hum of Route 46 once blended with the crackle of classic films. The Blue Moon Drive-In stood as a beacon of simple joys. Opened in the golden haze of the 1950s, it sprawled across a generous lot in Parsippany, drawing families in station wagons and couples stealing kisses in the back seats. Picture it: the glow of the massive screen casting silver light over rows of cars, tinny speakers dangling from half-rolled windows, blasting dialogue from Rebel Without a Cause or Some Like It Hot. Kids clutched butter-drenched popcorn, their laughter mingling with the scent of hot dogs from the concession stand, while parents sipped sodas under a canopy of stars. In those post-war years, the Blue Moon wasn't just a theater, it was a ritual. Route 66 might have called cross-country dreamers westward, but here on the edge of the Garden State, it was the local escape from the grind of factory shifts and suburban sprawl. Teenagers, decked in poodle skirts and leather jackets, turned the gravel lot into an impromptu sock hop between double features. Fireflies danced in the headlights like living constellations, and for a few hours, the world outside, be it the Korean War headlines or the creeping shadow of the Cold War, faded to black. By the swinging 60s and 70s, the drive-in evolved with the times. The lineup shifted to beach blanket bingo flicks and monster movies that had the whole lot cheering or screaming. But as multiplexes rose in air-conditioned splendor and video rentals crept into living rooms, the Blue Moon's magic dimmed. The final credits rolled sometime in the early 80s, the screen going dark for good. Demolition came quietly, a bulldozer's roar erasing the ramps and speakers, paving over the dreams with fresh asphalt. Today, that same spot hosts a bustling ShopRite parking lot where minivans idle amid grocery carts, oblivious to the ghosts beneath the tires. Pull in on a humid summer evening, and if you're lucky, you might still catch a whisper of old Hollywood on the breeze. Yet, in the heart of nostalgia, the Blue Moon endures, not as concrete and neon, but as a thread in America's drive-in tapestry. It reminds us of nights when entertainment meant gathering under the open sky, when a $2 ticket bought more than a movie. It bought memories that outlast the marquee. If you're chasing echoes of the past, hunt down vintage postcards of Jersey drive-ins or spin a reel of forgotten 50s footage. The Blue Moon may sleep, but its glow, that's timeless. Piling into the station wagon for a drive-in movie, it was a small-town adventure that felt like magic. The air smelled of fresh-cut grass and gasoline. The sun was slipping low behind the trees, and the horizon glowed gold. Kids fought over who got the window seat. Dad fiddled with the radio. Mom made sure no one forgot the blankets. And somewhere in the back, a paper bag full of popcorn was already half gone. Then came that moment, pulling off the road and onto the gravel lot. Rows of cars faced the giant white screen, glowing faintly in the twilight. You'd roll down the window, hook the heavy gray speaker to the door, and listen as it crackled to life. The sound wasn't perfect, but somehow that made it better. You weren't just watching a movie, you were part of a scene. Around you, the night hummed with quiet joy. Couples sat close beneath the dashboard light. Teenagers leaned against hoods, sharing milkshakes and secrets. Families unfolded lawn chairs, passing around thermoses of lemonade. And as the sky deepened to blue, the first frame flickered onto the screen, bright, grainy, and alive. The laughter came easy in those moments. Engines purred softly in the dark. Somewhere, a baby cried. Somewhere else, a soda bottle rolled under a seat. Fireflies blinked along the edges of the field, and when the movie reached its big kiss, the one everyone was waiting for, you could hear the faint cheer ripple through the rows of cars like a wave of happiness passing down the line. It wasn't just about the film, it was about being there, about the way the world seemed to pause for a few hours, letting everyone share the same light, the same night, the same story. You didn't realize it then, but you were living inside a memory you'd keep forever. And when the credits rolled, engines rumbled back to life. Headlights flickered on, one by one. The giant screen faded to white, and the smell of popcorn hung in the cool air. You'd watch the cars disappear into the distance, their taillights glowing red like fireflies on the open road. Years later, the drive-ins would close, screens would rust, grass would grow tall, and silence would settle where laughter once lived. But if you stand in those empty lots today, just for a moment, and close your eyes, you might still hear it. The crackle of a speaker, the soft hum of a car engine, the sound of popcorn crunching in the twilight, and maybe, just maybe, the echo of a simpler time, still shining under the stars. Leafing through the weekly TV guide, circling shows with a pencil, it was a quiet ritual that shaped the rhythm of American evenings. Each family had their favorites, penciled neatly in the margins. Bonanza on Sunday, The Andy Griffith Show on Monday, Bewitched, Gunsmoke, The Twilight Zone. That little magazine wasn't just a schedule. It was a promise of time spent together. Dinner came first. Of course, the smell of roast chicken or meatloaf filled the house. Mom called everyone to the table. Dad asked someone to turn off that radio, and the conversation drifted easily. School projects, baseball scores, neighborhood gossip. But everyone kept an eye on the clock, because when the hands reached 8, it was time for the show. The living room became a small theater. The television, a proud piece of furniture set inside a polished wooden cabinet, came alive. With a soft electric buzz, warm light flickered across wallpaper and faces alike. The family settled in, Dad in his armchair, Mom with her knitting, the kids sprawled on the carpet. Someone dimmed the lamps, and the room fell into that familiar blue glow. When the Andy Griffith Show came on, you could almost smell the fictional town of Mayberry, the fresh pies cooling on Aunt Bee's windowsill, the dusty road outside the sheriff's office. Dad chuckled at Barney Fife's nervous stammer. Mom smiled at Andy's calm wisdom. For 30 minutes, the world outside, work, bills, the traffic, all faded away. It was just the family and the gentle world inside the screen. And then there was Bonanza. Sunday night's grand adventure. The Ponderosa Ranch came alive in color, a marvel for families who'd only known black and white sets. Kids watched wide-eyed as Hoss and Little Joe galloped across the plains. Mothers admired the sweeping music. Fathers admired the horses. The family dog might bark at the gunfire, and everyone laughed at that too. Even the commercials became part of the memory. "See the USA in your Chevrolet," sang the jingle. Children hummed along, parents smiled, and for a moment, America felt united by the same voices, the same faces, glowing in every living room from Maine to California. It was a shared heartbeat, transmitted through rabbit ear antennas and woven into daily life. When the show ended, Dad reached forward and clicked the knob. The picture shrank to a single white dot before disappearing. The room was suddenly dim and peaceful, filled only with the ticking of a clock. Someone would say, "Time for bed," and the children would groan, "One more glass of milk, one more story." Outside, crickets sang, and the world felt safe. Decades later, the screens would change, growing flatter, brighter, faster. We'd stream endless choices alone instead of circling a handful together. But somewhere in the heart's quiet corners, those evenings remain. Mom's laughter, Dad's steady presence, and the comforting glow of a single screen lighting one American family at a time, twirling in poodle skirts at high school sock hops. That was how an entire generation learned the rhythm of freedom. The gym floor was alive with teenagers spinning, laughing, and dancing, the twist to the beat of rock and roll 45s. There were no cell phones, no screens, just the crackle of the record player and the pulse of youth echoing off the walls. Friday night meant everything. Classes were over, homework forgotten. The bleachers were pushed back, banners hung high, and someone's dad from the PTA set up the record player near half court. A tangle of extension cords, a box of vinyl singles, and a microphone that squealed now and then. That was all it took to light up a small-town night. The boys wore crisp white shirts and shiny shoes, hair slicked back just right. The girls in bright poodle skirts and saddle shoes twirled until the hem lifted like a spinning flower. You could smell floor wax and Coca-Cola, and somewhere, someone had snuck in a flask of something stronger. Every song felt like a spark. Hound Dog, Johnny B. Good, At the Hop, and for a few minutes, life moved to the beat of the impossible. Sock hops were named just that, because shoes scuffed the floors, so everyone danced in their socks, sliding across the gym floor, spinning faster and faster until the laughter drowned out the music. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, a space between childhood and adulthood, where everything, from the flicker of the lights to the brush of a hand, felt electric. Dropping a nickel into a jukebox at the local diner, it was more than just music. It was a small act of magic. The soft clink of the coin, the mechanical whir of the arm swinging into place, and then that first crackle of vinyl as your favorite Motown hit filled the air. Outside, the world was moving fast, but inside, under the glow of neon and chrome, time slowed down, one song at a time. Every diner had its own rhythm, the hiss of the soda fountain, the murmur of voices drifting between booths, the smell of burgers sizzling on the grill and French fries crisping in oil. Teenagers in Letterman jackets leaned across the counter, laughing too loud. Waitresses in pastel uniforms carried milkshakes that glowed under fluorescent light, and somewhere near the corner, always, stood the jukebox. Polished chrome, colored lights pulsing to the beat, like a heartbeat of the whole place. For a single nickel, you could own the room for 3 minutes. Didn't matter who you were, a high school kid after football practice, a young couple on a first date, or a lonely traveler stopping by on his way to somewhere else. The jukebox didn't judge. You'd scroll through the little cards behind, the Glass, the Supremes, the Temptations, Smokey Robinson, maybe even a little Elvis. And when you pressed those glowing buttons, it felt like choosing your own destiny. Then the arm moved, a click, a spin, a pause, and suddenly the room came alive. Feet started tapping, heads nodding, fingers drumming on the counter. Somewhere in the back booth, someone started to sing along. The jukebox had a way of turning strangers into a chorus. Music filled the spaces between bites of cherry pie and sips of milkshake, and for those few minutes, nothing else mattered. Maybe it's strange to think that a box of lights and records could hold so much feeling, but the jukebox was the soundtrack of everyday America, of teenage crushes, small-town dreams, and the quiet poetry of daily life. It was how people said things they couldn't quite speak aloud. A song could confess a love, mend a heartbreak, or fill the silence between two people who didn't yet know how to talk to each other. There was always a song for every season, fast ones for summer nights when the air was thick with laughter and gasoline, slow ones for winter evenings when the windows fogged and the jukebox light glowed warm against the glass. And sometimes, if you were lucky, the right song came on just as the right person walked through the door. That was the real magic of it, the way a simple machine could weave itself into the fabric of memory. Decades later, most of those diners are gone. The chrome is dull, the stools empty, and the jukeboxes sit silent, museum pieces of another time. But for those who remember, the memory still plays clear as a needle drop. The laughter, the scent of coffee, the melody that made you believe, just for a moment, that the world was simple and good. Before playlists, before Bluetooth speakers and streaming apps, there was the diner jukebox, a shining box of songs that belonged to everyone and no one, spinning dreams in neon light. All it took was a nickel and a little bit of heart. Thumbing a ride on the open road, it wasn't just travel, it was trust, it was courage, a worn backpack, a cardboard sign, and your thumb outstretched to the horizon. For a whole generation, the road was more than pavement. It was possibility, stretching westward beneath an endless American sky. You'd stand by the shoulder, sun on your face, hair whipped by the wind, feeling that small pulse of hope every time headlights appeared in the distance. Some drivers sped by, but every so often, one slowed. A window rolled down, and a stranger's smile meant, "Hop in." And just like that, two lives intersected. For a few miles, a few stories, a shared stretch of highway. Inside, the air smelled like gasoline, dust, and freedom. Sometimes the driver talked your ear off. A trucker heading cross-country, a college kid chasing a summer adventure, a widow on her way to visit her sister 2 states over. Other times, You just watched the road unwind in silence, telephone poles flicking past like the ticking of time. Out there, miles blurred into memory. You learned the language of the road, the way the air changed with the seasons, the smell of rain on hot pavement, the comfort of a diner sign glowing in the distance after dark. Each ride was a story, each driver a mystery, and somewhere between hello and goodbye, you learned a quiet faith in the kindness of strangers. Of course, there was danger too, the unspoken risk that came with trusting a face you'd never seen before. But that was part of it, the edge that made the journey feel real. People back home might have called it foolish, but for those who hitched rides, it felt like something sacred, like the road itself was alive, and it carried those who dared to believe in it. When you got dropped off in a new town, you'd sling your bag over your shoulder and start walking again. Maybe you'd find a payphone to call home, or a diner where the waitress poured you a cup of coffee and asked where you were headed. You'd smile, point to the horizon, and say, "West," and that was enough. Decades later, hitchhiking faded, replaced by caution, cars, and cell phones. The open road grew quieter, and the outstretched thumb became a relic of another America, one that believed a stranger might offer a ride, and maybe a story worth remembering. But for those who once stood on that shoulder, with the sky above and everything ahead, the memory remains. The road, the hum of tires, and the feeling of being carried, not just across miles, but through a time when trust still rode shotgun. Then came the slow songs. The lights dimmed, and suddenly, hearts beat a little faster. Couples swayed beneath paper streamers and basketball hoops. Hands met shyly, eyes drifted away and back again, and somewhere, a voice whispered, "Don't let go until the song ends." For many, that dance was the start of something remembered for a lifetime. When the final song played, the record crackled, and the crowd cheered. Shoes slipped back on, hair was fixed in the hallway mirror, and promises were made. "See you next Friday," or "Call me when you get home." Outside, cars waited in the dark, engines idling, headlights flickering across smiling faces. The night felt endless, the future close enough to touch. Years later, those same gymnasiums would echo with silence, the records boxed away, the paper streamers long gone. But if you stand in one of those halls today and close your eyes, you might still hear the rhythm, a faint beat, a burst of laughter, the whisper of socks sliding across polished wood. Before playlists and streaming, before we carried music in our pockets, we carried it in our hearts, and on Friday nights, we danced it into the world. The sock hop wasn't just a dance, it was a declaration that we were young, alive, and ready to move to the sound of forever.